I wanted to quit forever. 6 words that sent shockwaves through the tennis world. 6 words that froze an entire room, leaving journalists shifting uncomfortably in their seats, fans holding their breath, and critics silent for once. Emma Raducanu, Britain's golden girl, the teenage prodigy who once seemed untouchable, had just admitted that the sport that made her a superstar almost destroyed her. Think about that for a second. At just 18, she held a Grand Slam trophy in her hands. She was crowned as the new face of British tennis, a symbol of hope and renewal for an entire nation. Millions wanted to be her, millions more wanted to watch her, and brands lined up to sign her name to their glossy campaigns. On the outside, Emma had it all. But behind the flawless smile, behind the polished interviews and sponsorship photo shoots, cracks were forming, and they were deep. When Emma finally whispered those words, "I wanted to quit forever," it wasn't weakness. It was a raw, human confession. The kind of honesty that strips away all the glamour and reveals the person behind the headlines. A young woman, barely out of her teenage years, suffocating under the weight of impossible expectations. This is the paradox of success. One moment you're on top of the world, celebrated as the next big thing. The next you're isolated, judged, and drowning in pressure no teenager should ever face. For Emma, the fairy tale of New York in 2021 had transformed into a nightmare she could no longer control. She admitted that each time she stepped onto the court, she wasn't just playing her opponent, she was fighting ghosts. The ghost of that magical fortnight in New York, the ghost of headlines that called her a fairy tale champion, the ghost of critics who circled like vultures waiting for her to fail. Tennis, the game that once gave her joy, now felt like a prison cell she couldn't escape. And perhaps what hit fans hardest was the vulnerability in her voice. This wasn't the fierce competitor with the ice-cold composure we remembered from the U.S. Open final. This was Emma, the young girl who cried alone in hotel rooms, who dreaded mornings filled with training and scrutiny, who looked at her racket not as a weapon of joy but as a burden. So here's the question. How does someone who has everything, talent, fame, fortune, arrive at the brink of giving it all up? What went so wrong after the night she lifted the U.S. Open trophy that she could now stand before the world and confess she wanted to walk away forever? To understand that, we need to go back. Back to where the fairy tale began, back to New York 2021, the summer when an unknown teenager from Bromley stunned the world, rewriting history in ways no one thought possible. To truly understand Emma Raducanu's fall, you first need to feel the dizzying heights of her rise. And it all began the summer of 2021. She arrived in New York as a qualifier, ranked outside the top 100, just another name on a long list of hopefuls. For most fans, she was unknown, a teenager with a bright smile but little experience on the biggest stage. Nobody expected much. Nobody thought her name would echo through history. Yet over the next 2 weeks, Emma Raducanu would not just play tennis. She would create a miracle. Match after match, something extraordinary unfolded. She stepped onto the courts of Flushing Meadows with a fearless precision that stunned veterans and captivated crowds. She didn't just win, she dominated. Not a single set slipped from her grip. Each forehand cracked like thunder. Each return carried the weight of someone who had nothing to lose and everything to prove. By the time she reached the final, the story had already turned into a global sensation. Broadcasters couldn't get enough of her. Headlines screamed about the British fairy tale, the teenage comet lighting up New York's night sky. And then came the final match, a showdown that would define her life forever. Emma, calm beyond her years, defeated Leylah Fernandez in straight sets. In that moment, history was made. She became the first qualifier in tennis history, male or female, to win a Grand Slam, at just 18 years old. The celebrations in Britain were like something out of a dream. Newspapers declared her the Queen of Queens. Politicians, celebrities, and fellow athletes rushed to praise her. She wasn't just a tennis player anymore, she was a national treasure. After decades of longing for a new British champion, fans believed Emma was the future. She had brought the nation together, inspiring millions of young girls and boys who now believed anything was possible. And then came the floodgates of fame. Endorsements worth millions poured in. Tiffany uncovers Nike, Dior. Luxury brands fought for her signature. Social media exploded. Her followers multiplied overnight. She became more than an athlete. She was a global superstar. But here's the thing about meteors. They burn bright, and they burn fast. What nobody realized at the time, not the fans and not the media, maybe not even Emma herself, was that this meteoric rise came with a hidden cost. Every handshake, every sponsorship, every photograph raised the bar higher and higher. Suddenly, Emma wasn't just a young player enjoying her moment. She was a symbol, a product, the face of tennis's future. And for an 18-year-old girl, that kind of weight is crushing. At an age when most teenagers are navigating exams, friendships, and first jobs, Emma was navigating the demands of a global spotlight. Every smile had to be perfect, every word in an interview dissected, every match treated like a referendum on her future. The dream had turned real, but dreams, when they collide with reality, often come with a shadow. For Emma, the shadow of expectation was already growing, even as she stood with the U.S. Open trophy in her hands. After New York, everyone expected the story to continue upward. More titles, more finals, maybe even a new dynasty in women's tennis. But reality came crashing in, and it came hard. Emma's first battles weren't against opponents across the net. They were against her own body. Small injuries piled up one after another. Wrist pain, ankle strains, back troubles. Matches that once looked effortless turned into grueling struggles. Instead of dancing across the court, she found herself grimacing in pain, withdrawing from tournaments and spending more time in physio rooms than on the practice court. Her ranking began to slip, and the whispers began. Was she just a one-hit wonder? And then came the coaching carousel. In less than 2 years, Emma cycled through multiple coaches. Each departure was dissected by pundits and painted by the media as a sign of instability. Was she indecisive, unable to commit, lost without direction? Every move she made became another headline and another reason for critics to doubt her. The pressure wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Imagine this. Every time she walked onto the court, she wasn't only playing a match. She was carrying the weight of headlines, sponsors, critics, and millions of fans who demanded she be perfect every single time. For Emma, there was no escape. Winning was expected, losing was unforgivable, and when the cameras zoomed in, the narrative shifted. She was no longer the wonder girl. She became the wasted talent. Commentators questioned her discipline. Analysts doubted her resilience. The same voices that once built her up were now tearing her down. But what hurt more than anything was the loneliness. Tennis is an isolating sport. Endless travel, hotel rooms that all look the same, nights spent alone after tough losses. For Emma, still just a teenager, the isolation was crushing. She confessed to crying alone in hotel rooms, dreading the mornings when another match, another round of scrutiny awaited her. The joy of the game had slipped away. The racket she once lifted with pride now felt like a chain holding her hostage. And then came the breaking point. In a rare, unguarded interview, Emma whispered the words that broke hearts around the world. I wanted to quit forever. Her voice trembled. Her eyes filled with tears. For the first time, fans didn't see the polished champion or the glamorous brand ambassador. They saw a fragile young woman, vulnerable, exhausted, human. This wasn't unprecedented. Naomi Osaka had stepped back from the sport, citing the toll on her mental health. Ashley Barty, at just 25, walked away from tennis entirely, saying the demands no longer fulfilled her. But hearing it from Emma felt different. This was the girl who had been painted as the future of tennis, the beacon of hope. And suddenly she was admitting the pedestal itself was crushing her. It was a confession that shocked the world, but it was also an act of courage. In a sporting culture that celebrates strength and perfection, Emma showed that true bravery sometimes means admitting you are breaking. The moment Emma's words hit the airwaves, the world reacted. Headlines erupted across major sports outlets. Raducanu admits she nearly quit tennis forever. Social media exploded with shock, sympathy, and reflection. For once, the comments weren't filled with criticism or judgment. Instead, they overflowed with love and understanding. Fans rushed to defend her, to remind her of how much she meant, not just as a champion, but as a person. And something remarkable happened. Fellow athletes, some of the very best in the game, spoke out too. They shared their own experiences of burnout, of loneliness on tour, of feeling suffocated by expectations. Emma's raw honesty had opened a door, giving others permission to tell their truths. Her words became a mirror, reflecting back the silent struggles of countless players, and even ordinary people watching at home. Because Emma's story wasn't just about tennis, it was about the universal weight of expectations, about the crushing pressure to always be enough, whether from parents, bosses, teachers, or even ourselves. How many of us have woken up dreading another day of scrutiny, feeling trapped in a routine that once brought joy but now feels like a cage? Emma put those feelings into words, and in doing so, she became more relatable than ever. The debate she sparked was bigger than her career. Are we protecting our young athletes enough? Our fame and fortune arriving too quickly, too soon? Is the sports machine guilty of devouring prodigies and spitting them out when the shine fades? These weren't just questions for tennis. They were questions about our culture, about how we treat success and how we consume it. But in the middle of all this, something shifted for Emma. She was no longer boxed into being the fragile star or the one-hit wonder. She became a young woman, brave enough to show her breaking point, and that honesty ironically gave her a new kind of strength. The world didn't see weakness, it saw courage. Her story is far from over. Whether she climbs back to the top of the sport, reinvents herself, or chooses an entirely different path, Emma Raducanu has already left an indelible mark. She showed us that victory isn't just holding a trophy high. Sometimes victory is daring to be vulnerable in front of millions. And that leads to you, the one watching this right now. What does true strength mean to you? Is it about never falling, never showing cracks? Or is it about having the courage to admit when you're close to breaking and still daring to rise again? If Emma's story touched you, if you've ever felt crushed by expectations, then this is your moment to share. Leave a comment below. What does strength mean in your life? Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more powerful sports stories, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the most unforgettable matches aren't played on the court, they're fought in the heart.